is when he allegedly hit her in the back of the head and proceeded to slap her on the right side of the face, resulting in a cut by her mouth. Now, according to the fourth, things got physical. He reportedly told the victim to remove the kids from the car, saying he knows.
Ever wondered what happens when a knockout champion walks into a courtroom? That's exactly what the latest footage shows. Gervonta "Tank" Davis, the WBA lightweight king and pay-per-view draw, staring down the bench after a domestic battery arrest that's already sent shockwaves through boxing. In this newly released clip, Davis's stone-cold expression is captured as he steps out of the courthouse, the cameras catching every tense beat of his legal battle. It's no ordinary court appearance. The charges involve assault with a deadly weapon, a verdict that could slam his career into a permanent fight stop. And the world can't get enough. This video is already going viral, fueling a debate that's echoing far beyond the ring. Stay with us as we break down what this means for the champ, his future fights, and the boxing community at large. In the early hours of a humid June morning, a hush fell over a corner of Miami Beach as a familiar face stepped out of the back door of TGK. Gervonta "Tank" Davis, the lightweight champion whose punches have echoed across stadiums, walked out with his head low, his jacket draped over his shoulders. The scene was simple yet loaded. A man who once stood on the brink of greatness now stood on the brink of a courtroom, surrounded by the buzz of reporters and the distant thud of a city's pulse. The footage that spread across social media the very next day showed Davis calmly entering an SUV, his expression stone cold. No words were exchanged, no explanation offered, just the silent weight of a story that had already begun to unfold. It was not a dramatic or chaotic exit. It was the quiet exodus of a fighter who had once been the darling of fans and promoters alike. Yet the silence was loud in its implication. Behind those calm eyes lay a storm that was now racing toward the courthouse. The charges against Davis are grave. He is accused of assaulting his ex-girlfriend, the mother of his 2 children, in Doral on Father's Day. According to her account, Davis struck her in the back of the head and slapped her across the mouth, causing a bleeding lip. Witnesses recorded part of the incident, capturing the moment that the footage shows Davis throwing a punch at her. Police used a license plate reader to track him down in Miami Beach and arrested him without incident. He was booked as a serious misdemeanor, held without bond at the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center, and a court date has been set for July 29th. This is not a first for Davis. In February 2020, footage surfaced of him grabbing a woman's throat at a charity basketball game. That charge was dismissed, but the image of a boxer resorting to violence remained etched in the public's memory. Now, the new allegations carry an even heavier legal label: assault with a deadly weapon, because his fists, those very instruments of his craft, are considered deadly weapons under the law. It is a distinction that, for any athlete, signals a turning point. The boxing community has been rattled. Fans who once celebrated his knockout artistry now watch in stunned silence as the man's record and his ring persona collide with the harsh realities of the law. His status as the WBA lightweight champion and a pay-per-view draw has never and should never shield a fighter from accountability. The fallout is immediate. A scheduled return to the ring, perhaps a high-stakes bout against Devin Haney, has been shelved as the legal battle unfolds. Haney's reaction was swift and unfiltered. Known for his own fiery temper in the ring, he expressed a deep sense of disappointment, even disdain at Davis's apparent vulnerability. "He's not fearless," Haney said, his voice tinged with bitterness. "He's weak when dealing with these situations." He went on to describe an emotional breakdown, claiming he had seen Davis's eyes water, a stark contrast to the tough exterior that the fight fans loved. The rivalry, already charged with personal animosity, now seems to carry an added layer of judgment. But the conversation extends beyond personal feuds. Former world champion Antonio Tarver stepped into the fray, offering a broader perspective that resonated with many. Tarver warned of a culture within boxing that prioritizes paydays over fighters' well-being. He pointed out that young boxers are often left to navigate the treacherous waters of fame, fortune and the sport's intense pressures without proper guidance or mentorship. We need to build them up, Tarver urged, his voice filled with genuine concern. We need to get behind them, support them. The former champion's remarks carry a particular weight. He knows the industry's inner workings. He has seen fighters rise and fall. For Davis, whose career was in a period of rapid ascent, the focus now is not just on his legal situation, but on the potential erasure of a legacy that might have otherwise been defined by triumph in the ring. Tarver's comment about the absence of experienced voices is not merely an observation. It is a critique of a system that often treats fighters as commodities. He highlighted how the support structures that were once robust have eroded, leaving boxers exposed to the same pressures that drive them to the brink. Sometimes, life is harder than any opponent we could face, Tarver said. I hope he gets it together, bro. I feel like a lot of these young men don't have mentors. There aren't any real handlers left in the game anymore. Nobody's taking care of the camp. The implications ripple outward. If Davis's legal troubles culminate in a conviction, the repercussions will be severe. Beyond the potential jail time, a conviction for domestic violence could jeopardize his eligibility to fight, disrupt sponsorship deals, and tarnish his public image. The once promising narrative of a rising star now faces the possibility of becoming a cautionary tale. The boxing world, however, remains wary yet hopeful. There is a part of the community that believes in redemption, that understands the human dimension of the sport. Others, less forgiving, see this as a clear end to a career that, while brilliant, was never entirely free of controversy. Parallel to this story is a larger conversation about systemic scrutiny and the double standards that disproportionately affect athletes of color. Bill Haney, reflecting on the heightened media and institutional pressure, called for a balanced approach that holds all athletes to the same standards of accountability and compassion. He argued that the media's focus, while intense, must not be a blanket of bias, but a call for equitable treatment. It's not about excusing behavior, he said, but about acknowledging a system that often operates with a double standard. His message resonated with many who see the intersection of race, media scrutiny, and the legal system. As the courtroom drama continues to unfold, the world watches, not just for the verdict, but for the story of how a fighter navigates the fine line between the roar of the crowd and the silence of accountability. The viral footage of Gervonta Davis in the courtroom will remain a stark reminder that even the most electrifying talent must confront the consequences of their actions. In the end, the sport may reflect a deeper truth. The path to greatness is paved not only with victory, but with integrity, support, and the courage to face oneself when the lights dim and the world looks on. The court tape has set a new tone for what follows in Gervonta Davis's career. The viral clip, his quiet, almost apologetic demeanor in the judge's chambers, has become a living symbol of how quickly a rising star can be pulled into the shadows of public scrutiny. Every comment that follows carries a weight far beyond the legal filing. It is the weight of a brand, the weight of a legacy, the weight of a community that has watched him rise, now watches him falter. Immediately, the fallout ripples through the fight calendar. The rematch with Lamont Roach Jr., once slated as the definitive next chapter for Davis, has slipped into uncertainty. Betting lines have flipped, a telltale sign of market confidence wavering. When the legal headlines flood the feeds, the underdog's odds improve. Money flows towards Roach, a strategic move by bettors who know that a disgraced champion's return can be unpredictable, both in terms of ring performance and availability. The ripple effect extends to promoters, sponsors, and the very fabric of the event's financial structure. A single lawsuit can drain a promotional budget, shift endorsement deals, and shift the spotlight from the ring to the courtroom. Yet, amid the turmoil, voices of mentorship rise. Abdullah Mason's words of support feel like a quiet defiance against the negative currents. In a sport where every misstep is magnified, Mason's solidarity underscores a deeper truth. that even when a fighter is battling his own demons, the community can offer a lifeline. This is more than a passing comment. It is a reminder that the world outside the ring is not a blank slate, but a network of relationships that can either erode or strengthen a young athlete's resolve. The situation also forces a broader conversation about the systemic inequalities that shape how athletes are perceived and treated. Bill Haney's frustration is not merely a lament about media bias. It is a critique of the institutional double standards that plague athletes of color. When a white athlete commits a transgression, the narrative often focuses on accountability and rehabilitation. When a black athlete does the same, the narrative shifts quickly to condemnation, with less room for nuance. Haney's message cuts through the noise, calling for a level playing field where character, not color, is the ultimate barometer. The emphasis on equity, he says, is not about absolving wrongdoing, but about ensuring that the consequences are proportionate and just. The legal system itself is unyielding. Boxing commissions have historically been quick to suspend licenses when domestic violence allegations surface. The rationale is clear. The sport's ethos hinges on respect, discipline, and control. An athlete who violates those very principles in his personal life cannot be allowed to carry the mantle of the sport. A suspension or revocation of a license is not a punitive measure against the athlete alone. It is a protective stance for the integrity of the sport, for the safety of the fighters, and for the public's perception of boxing. In Davis's case, every day the court sits on a knife edge between potential conviction and the possibility of his name clearing, a scenario that could either reopen the door to the ring or cement his absence from it forever. The stakes for Davis are personal and professional. Jail time would not only bar him from fighting, but it would also sever sponsorships, diminish public trust, and damage the image of his brand. The legal verdict becomes a pivot point. A guilty plea may expedite the return of his license in the future, but at a steep cost of reputation. A dismissal might keep his name untainted, but would leave the legal question unresolved, leaving his future as a fighter uncertain. The public is acutely aware of this tension, and every new development in the case is dissected by pundits and fans alike. In the midst of this, the narrative of mentorship and family ties surfaces repeatedly. The importance of strong family bonds, those who keep a fighter grounded, those who remind him of the weight of his choices, cannot be overstated. When cameras are off, the support system is what holds a fighter's career together. For Davis, his immediate circle appears strained, suggesting a breakdown in that crucial support network. This adds a layer of tragedy to the story. A fighter who had a platform that could have guided him away from the brink, now faces the possibility of descending into deeper pitfalls. The long-term impact on the sport itself is profound. Every high-profile case adds to the perception that boxing is a haven for unchecked aggression, a place where the consequences of personal misconduct are minimized in the name of entertainment. If the sport wants to sustain its legitimacy, it must confront these narratives head-on. The discussion must move beyond surface apologies and toward structural reforms. Better mental health support for fighters, mandatory educational programs about personal conduct, and a robust mentorship framework that pairs young athletes with experienced, ethical role models. As the courtroom drama continues, the world remains divided between those who view Davis's journey as a cautionary tale and those who see the potential for redemption. The conversation is not simply about a single boxer, but about the larger cultural forces that create, sustain, and sometimes dismantle careers. The hope is that through this crisis, lessons will be learned, both by Davis and by the sport at large, about accountability, support, and the true meaning of greatness. The story of Gervonta Davis is, in many ways, a microcosm of the challenges facing young athletes today. Navigating fame, managing personal conduct, and confronting systemic biases that can either amplify or suppress their voices. Whatever the final verdict in court, the ripple effects will be felt for years, influencing not just the trajectory of one boxer, but the very way the sport treats its most vulnerable members. The narrative remains unfinished, but the dialogue it sparks is already beginning to shape a future where talent, integrity, and mentorship walk hand in hand, ensuring that the lights in the arena shine on those who not only win fights, but also live up to the responsibility that comes with it. The latest footage that's taken the internet by storm shows Gervonta Davis's face in a courtroom, framed by the stark glare of fluorescent lights and the heavy silence of a judge's gavel. For a man whose every jab and hook has been broadcast to millions, the sight of him sitting in a dimly lit courtroom is a raw reminder that the fight is now offering inside a legal arena that is just as unforgiving. The video captured him in that tense pause between the judge's words, his eyes flicking from the witness stand to the defendant's table, a subtle illustration of how the narrative has shifted from the ring to the courtroom and from victory to accountability. This scene underscores a broader truth about celebrity culture. The endless scroll of Instagram feeds and the curated lives we consume can distract us from what truly matters. How many hours a day do we spend tracing the perfect highlight reel of a champion's life when, in reality, that time could be spent nurturing a relationship with family, investing in a community, or simply listening to a child's voice? The viral clip forces us to confront the dissonance between the public persona projected by social media and the private struggles that often lie beneath. The focus on the digital spotlight can blur the lines of what it means to be a father, a role model, and a person of character. In the midst of this public spectacle, the plea for Davis and the mother of his child to find a path to peace is both heartbreaking and poignant. The case is messy, layered, and intensely personal, yet what remains constant is the well-being of the children involved. Even as headlines swirl, the silent plea echoes that these innocent lives deserve compassion, support, and a chance to grow without the weight of adult controversies looming over them. The courtroom footage, though stark, reminds us that there is more at stake than a fight card or a record. It is about protecting the fragile futures of those who have yet to choose their own path. Bernard Hopkins, a veteran of the sport who has weathered his own share of controversy, offers a voice of measured perspective. He does not shy away from acknowledging the gravity of the allegations against Davis. The evidence is undeniable, and the potential consequences are real. Yet, Hopkins also stresses the possibility of redemption and healing, underscoring that even a fallen star can rise again. The message that surfaces is one of hope, that through acknowledgement, accountability, and genuine effort, a fighter can learn from missteps, grow, and return not only to the ring, but to the community that supports him. Parallel to Hopkins' reflection is Antonio Tarver's observation about the unique psychological makeup of boxers. Tarver notes that some fighters are oddly engineered to thrive amid pressure, turning adversity into a catalyst for greatness. This perspective is fascinating, but raises an uncomfortable question. At what point does the mental toll of such pressure become unsustainable? The sport thrives on the narrative of triumph over adversity, yet the cost can be profound. If a fighter's well-being is sacrificed in pursuit of glory, the sport itself may be perpetuating a cycle of emotional stunting and unhealthy coping mechanisms. The ramifications ripple beyond the ring and into the corridors of sponsorship and broadcasting deals. Brands are increasingly cautious, aware that aligning with a figure entangled in serious allegations could jeopardize their own reputations. The decision to drop or maintain an endorsement contract is no longer just about financial bottom line. It is also about protecting brand integrity. This creates a precarious balance for fighters like Davis, who must navigate the fine line between sustaining commercial partnerships and addressing the legal and moral implications of their actions. Lamont Roach Jr.'s recent experience with Davis was not merely a bout, it was a litmus test of resilience. In their fight, Roach confronted not only the physical prowess of his opponent, but also the psychological war that has become part of modern boxing. Roach's commentary on the fight, describing it as a test of resilience, highlights how fighters are often expected to perform despite personal turmoil. The comparison is stark. While Davis has been thrust into a public struggle with his legal and personal life, Roach's journey has been defined by his ability to stay focused amid the distractions, to channel pressure into performance, and to maintain dignity in the face of adversity. Adding a layer of humility, the mention of Jonathan Endo serves as a reminder that greatness is never absolute. Endo's presence in the conversation points to the fact that even the most celebrated fighters are vulnerable to being challenged by new talent. In the same vein, the grease and hair excuse that surfaced during the trial was a fleeting glimpse of human frailty. It prompted a discussion about ownership. Can a public figure simply use such a remark to dodge scrutiny? Or should he take full responsibility for the narrative he creates? The footage of Davis in the courtroom suggests that moments of vulnerability, when unmasked, can become an integral part of the redemption narrative. Finally, the central question remains clear. Can Davis weather this storm, or is the path ahead fraught with self-destruction? The courtroom video, now a viral touchstone, forces the community to confront the choices that lay before him, between capitulating to the weight of his missteps or rising anew with renewed purpose. The decision is not just about legal outcomes. It is about whether a fighter can transform personal reckoning into an opportunity to rebuild trust, to serve as a better father, and to embody the character that fans have long admired. The story is still unfolding, but the viral footage invites us to reflect on the intersection of fame, accountability, and the possibility of genuine redemption. The clip that suddenly flooded social media feeds captured a moment that seemed almost banal at first glance. Gervonta Davis, eyes narrowed, speaking to a judge in a cramped courtroom. Yet the very act of looking straight at the bench, of maintaining composure amid the clamor of a courtroom full of reporters and cameras, revealed the depth of focus that many viewers felt was missing from his earlier televised fights. In the heat of a boxing match, a fighter's focus is often measured in seconds between punches. In the courtroom, it stretches into minutes of legal scrutiny, where every word can pivot the trajectory of a career. Within hours of the video going viral, the boxing community was already dissecting the significance of that calm focus. Some commentators praised Davis for demonstrating the mental discipline required to stand trial, arguing that it hinted at a potential turning point. Others, however, pointed out that focus is only one component of a larger mosaic. His legal strategy, the judge's rulings, and the public's reaction all intertwine. Yet the footage served as a powerful visual reminder that the sport's heroes are not just athletes. They are public figures whose every gesture can shape narrative arcs. The ripple effects of that single clip extended far beyond the courtroom. Sponsors who had previously expressed hesitation about associating with a fighter embroiled in legal controversy began to reassess their positions. A brand that had once celebrated Davis's explosive power now faced the possibility of being tied to a narrative of misstep. The question that entered marketing meetings was less about the legality of the allegations and more about the symbolic weight of focus. A sponsor's endorsement is, after all, an endorsement of the athlete's character, and a courtroom focus becomes a proxy for integrity in the eyes of consumers. The decision to continue or sever partnerships often hinges on whether a fighter can showcase the same laser focus in his next public appearance, thereby reassuring stakeholders that his professional image remains intact. While corporate reactions were unfolding, the fighters themselves were contending with their own internal battles. Lamont Roach Jr., who had faced Davis in a recent bout, had already spoken to the press about the psychological toll of fighting under the shadow of legal uncertainty. His commentary on resilience, how one can maintain focus in the ring while knowing the world's eyes are fixed on a separate, high-stakes arena, echoed the same theme of disciplined attention. Roach's experience illuminated the broader reality that fighters are frequently required to compartmentalize. The mental focus needed to dodge a jab, to pace themselves, or to respond to a sudden change in strategy must coexist with the ability to maintain composure under legal pressure. The intersection of these two domains can be exhausting, yet it also offers a platform for showcasing the depth of a boxer's psychological resilience. Adding another layer to the narrative, Jonathan Endel's mention in the conversation about new talent reminds us that focus is not only about individual performance, but also about staying relevant amidst fresh competition. Even a seasoned champion must keep his focus razor-sharpened to guard against the inevitable rise of a challenger. Endo's rise to prominence, coupled with Davis's legal entanglements, underscores the competitive urgency. A fighter cannot afford lapses in concentration, whether in the ring or in court, if he wishes to preserve his legacy. In this sense, the viral footage is a stark illustration of how the pressure of focus can be both a burden and a catalyst. The courtroom footage also forced the public to confront the gravity of accountability. The judge's measured questions, the judge's patience, and Davis's measured responses served as a visual testament to the process of justice. The focus required to articulate defense strategies, to recall details under scrutiny, and to respond to unexpected lines from counsel underscores the intellectual rigor of a legal proceeding. The audience's perception shifted from seeing Davis merely as a sports figure to recognizing him as a participant in a larger societal dialogue about responsibility. This shift was pivotal in shaping the subsequent debate. Should the boxing community offer support, or should it distance itself from a figure whose focus was now being tested on multiple fronts? Amid these debates, the most intimate thread of the story emerged: the role of fatherhood. In a fleeting, almost inadvertent moment captured on the viral clip, Davis's eyes softened when he referenced his children. That brief glimpse of focus on a personal responsibility offered a humanizing counterpoint to the legal narrative. For many fans, it was a reminder that the athlete's identity extends beyond the ring. A fighter who can maintain focus on both the courtroom and the family table is arguably more relatable, and this relatability fuels the narrative of redemption. The idea that he can rebuild trust, both with the law and with those who rely on him as a father, hinges on his continued ability to focus. Looking forward, the path ahead for Davis appears uncertain yet defined by the contours of focus. The legal system will, in time, deliver a verdict that will either reinforce or undermine his public image. Sponsors will reevaluate their involvement based on the outcome and on Davis's demonstrated focus in subsequent appearances. Fellow fighters will observe his journey as a case study in how to navigate the thin line between athletic excellence and personal accountability. And perhaps most importantly, the audience will continue to watch, hoping that focus on the ring, on the courtroom, on family will transform a moment of controversy into a story of genuine redemption. Through the relentless scrutiny that has now enveloped his life, whether in the ring, behind a courthouse bench, or at the dinner table, Gervonta Davis has a chance to use the discipline that once powered his punches to shape a new narrative. The viral footage, initially a stark reminder of a fallen champion, has become a catalyst for dialogue about accountability, redemption, and the enduring responsibility of a father and athlete alike. If he can sustain that calm focus and demonstrate a genuine commitment to change, he may not only reclaim his place in the sport, but also restore the faith of those who look to him as a role model, turning a moment of controversy into a testament to the human capacity for growth and renewal.